To begin constructing the pockets of our pants here, you want to start with 2 front leg pieces that have already been attached at the crotch seam, and then go ahead and get your fly out of the way. So I have a fly that is completely functional. It's all done. So I have my 2 front leg pieces, and then I have 2 mirrored pocket bags. So here's the one, and then my other is of course mirrored facing the other direction. And then the last 2 pieces I need are these pocket barriers, which are just like the bags, mirrored to one another. Up to this point, you might have already put on your coin pocket onto this pocket barrier here, but that is optional. You do not need it. And if you would like to add it later, you can absolutely sew it on later. But these are the essential pieces that you will need to construct the pocket. All right, to start, we're going to go ahead and take our pocket bags and our pocket barrier pieces and begin by finishing this raw edge of your pocket barrier. I have used my serger, but you can use a zigzag or an overcast stitch. And then these 2 pieces will align perfectly in this top right hand corner of your pocket bag. So after you finish that edge, go ahead and line these 2 pieces up and then pin them together. The right side of your pocket bag is facing up and the right side of your pocket barrier is facing up. Then use a regular straight stitch to follow along this curve and attach it to the pocket bag. And then use a long straight stitch to just baste down these 2 sides here. This is just going to keep this in place while you attach everything to these sides, whether it's the waistband at the top or the side seam. It's just going to keep it in place. So a regular stitch down at this bottom curve, and then a long straight basting stitch along the top and the side. And you'll do that with both pieces. So I've used this red thread to make it really easy for you to see, but I would encourage you to use a matching thread color. But I've gone ahead and attached this at the bottom here, and then use the long straight stitch on the top and the side of both my sides, both my pocket barriers and pocket bags. So now we'll grab our legs here, and we're gonna start by getting the matching side. So to know which side matches it, it's very simple. You're going to want your pocket barrier on the same side as your pocket. So this one goes to this side. Then we're going to flip this over, and this curve on our pocket bag is going to match up with this curve on the pocket opening for our legs. So I'm going to go ahead and take a few pins here and attach it along this curve. And once we have it pinned, we'll go ahead and do the other side. Once again, I know this is the correct side because the corner over here matches up for my pocket barrier. Flip it over so that the right side is down, and then match up my curves and pin them together. You only need a few pins here. And then being careful not to accidentally sew this side onto that or anything like that. Then you're going to come over here and go ahead and use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and sew right along this curve here. If you would like to use a serger to do this, that's totally fine. If you do not, then go ahead and use a straight stitch and then a finishing stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and attach both sides of this. All right, so it should be looking something like this at this point. Now go ahead and grab yourself an ironing board, and you're going to flip your pants so that everything is facing down, okay? Everything's facing down, and we're going to get ready to understitch our seam here. This is going to keep the pocket bag lining from showing at the front of our pants when we're wearing them. So it's a step that you really don't want to skip. And how we're going to do this is just get your seam allowance here, and it's very simple. Just press it, steam press it with your iron up towards the pocket bag. So take a few moments to really make sure that everything is pulled taut so that you get a nice good crease along the curve here. Don't worry if you get bunching here that you're going to press down. It's all going to be resolved later. So take your iron and steam press the seam allowance from your last stitch up towards that pocket bag. I'm just using my tailor's clapper here to help get a nice crisp seam. If you would like, you can use some pins to keep it in place. And then you'll just take this over to the sewing machine, use a straight stitch right on your seam allowance to sew this seam allowance to your pocket bag. So take it over, straight stitch right along this curve here, and do that for both sides. Okay, so we have our seam allowance stitched down here so that the seam allowance is pressed towards the pocket lining. And now when we fold this down, you should not be seeing that pocket bag from the front side. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this back down on top of my ironing board. And now we're gonna fold it back towards the back side of the pant and go ahead and give this front part of our pocket curve a good press so that that pocket bag is not visible from the front side here. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a few pins in here to make sure that it doesn't roll towards the front when I do my top stitching. We just need a few, and then let's do the other side. Now it should be looking something like this. So now we are going to go ahead and take this over and top stitch right along the curve here so that the pocket bag does not roll towards the front. On the back side, I want you to be very careful not to accidentally sew any of the side of the pocket bag as you top stitch. Just follow along this curve and make sure everything is nice and flat as you go. And same deal with the other side. So let's go ahead and do that. And this is what that beautiful top stitching should look like. And we are on the final step where you will just be taking the pocket bag here and folding it in half. You're going to notice when you fold it in half that the bottom curve should line up perfectly with one another. And make sure that the curves are in fact lined up along the edge and down towards the corner there. And now I'm going to grab a couple of pins and I want to secure the pocket bag to the side. Keep the pins up a little bit, don't go all the way towards the edge, and I will show you why in just a second here. So we're going to start by taking this over to the sewing machine and using a finishing stitch to close up our pocket bag here. We are only sewing through these two layers at this bottom edge of the pocket bag. You will want to use a serger, a zigzag, or an overcast stitch, something to keep it from fraying. And you are not going to be sewing the front leg at all. Just these two layers here, we're just closing up this pocket bag to keep it from opening when you put your hands in and your stuff in. And then after you have the bottom sewn together, go ahead and do another basting stitch right along the side edge here so that it stays in place as we construct our pants. And then another basting stitch at the top here. These basting stitches are just going to keep everything in place while we finish constructing the pants. So to go over that one more time, I'm going to go ahead and grab the other pocket bag here for you to see. Go ahead and fold it in half so that our curves are matched up at the bottom. Then pin it at the sides here so that it stays folded properly as you sew. Then take it over and use your finishing stitch to close up the bag along the bottom, just these two layers here, basting stitch on the side, basting stitch at the top. And here are our finished pockets. So you'll see our beautiful top stitching, and then we have our basting stitches on the side here, and then along the top, and also along our pocket barrier. All of this is going to keep everything in place nicely, keep the pockets from coming apart as we do our side seams and our waistband. So this will keep everything together nicely. From the back side, you'll see that the bottom of the pocket is closed, so nothing will fall out of those pockets. and you'll see our basting stitches along the sides and the top. But the pocket is completely functional. Go ahead and put your hand in there. Make sure that you don't have any gaping or any holes anywhere and that everything's laying nice and flat. And we'll put our rivets on at the end of our construction. I hope this was helpful to you. Please check out our other jean making articles. You can find some links in the description, and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our future videos. And I cannot wait to see you next time.